All right, it's John Wood here, the founder of Rage Heart. I'm here with Logan Hobson, one of the very first Rage Heart customers, actually. He signed up in the very, very beginning when I just launched it, I think be almost 2 years ago now. And he sent me, we sort of stayed in touch. He went through a lot of it and he's sent through a few stories, testimonials about how it went for him. And I thought it would be very just interesting to get him on the podcast and find out in more detail what's been going on for him and what he yeah, where all the nervous system stuff has taken him and how it's different to things like meditation, because he's done a lot of some of those things too. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that today. Logan, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good. No, I appreciate it. And I remember a couple years back sitting in the hotel in Kyoto right before the borders opened up when you released Rage Heart. And I remember looking through it and being like, yeah, this sounds great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So that's probably a good place to kick things off is to, I mean, what brought you in the first place? Like what did I say or what sparked something in you where you're like, this sounds kind of cool?
I've been dabbling in meditation probably for a decade now. Like I've always dealt with anxiety and never really wanted to like medicate for it. So I always look towards things like medication to try to help manage things. And I've found it had some other benefits as well, but it was never quite doing what I wanted. Like I
Mm-hmm.
found mindfulness and breath work and all that ages ago. And then even in Japan, I got trained in transcendental meditation by like a master here. So I had to go through the whole ritual, learning that, getting my mantra, and it still didn't quite find or give me what I was looking for. And at that point, I was basically ready to give up on meditation in terms of like dealing with that. And then Rage Heart came along, and I'm like, this sounds different, and it sounds like it's exactly what I've been missing.
Interesting. And so what were you, I mean, you mentioned anxiety. Can you share a little bit more? Like, what do you mean by anxiety for you? How was that? What was happening in your life that told you, hey, I have anxiety?
And there's a lot of moments where I feel like I had more fight or flight response than other people, or there'd be times where it's like I'd notice my heart's racing a lot more, or I'd be kind of afraid to act in a certain situation, and my head starts spinning in all directions. Like it's been a issue for a lot of my life in terms of stopping me from taking actions that I knew I wanted to or knew that I should.
Okay. And so you mentioned, I think we spoke 2 weeks ago, you mentioned, so was it just a mental thing in terms of thoughts, or did you feel, was there a body or physical component as well to the anxiety?
Oh, there was definitely a physical part, especially my chest, my back, that area especially would really tense up, my shoulders as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're in like a situation, it sounds like a social situation by the sound of it, or maybe a work project or something like that, and the anxiety would kick in, and then it would be hard to act. Is that kind of how it would go down?
Yeah, sometimes in social situations or even like before like a sales call for business and stuff, where it's like I'd get kind of tensed up and it would be really hard to be natural, be myself, and take control of the frame of the call.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like if I am really, really nervous and then I show up to a call or a date or whatever it happens to be, I feel so stiff. And stiff is a really good word because I'm probably all my body is literally stiff. And I'm like, you say stuff and I'm like, why did I say that?
Yeah,
That kind of thing, right?
yeah, exactly.
And so you mentioned like meditation. I think before you've mentioned like breath work, you've done, a variety of different things. So it was helping in like when you did those practices, did it help you to calm down in those moments at least? Did it give you some sense of relief?
Not exactly. It's always in those moments where I'd kind of, forget about it. Plus, like the type of meditations and stuff I'd learned where it's like, all right, we're going to sit down and close our eyes for like 10 minutes or something. And that's when the effects start to happen. Or like transcendental was like two times a day for like 18 minutes in the morning and at night. And then it's like during the day, like, sure, right afterwards in the morning and at night, I'd feel calm and collected. But when it really mattered in the middle of the day, that all kind of went away and the anxiety would come back, and I didn't have any tools for dealing with it in the moment.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess I was a bit like that back before I sort of got into this nervous system work, where it's like I'd meditate. I don't I tried a few times doing it twice a day, but I never could stick with that. So I do once a day in the morning, and yeah, I could be pretty calm. I guess I'm sitting on my bed, nothing's happening, But then I go out into the world and, like a sales call, like you said, and it's like, I, it's just not there anymore. Like I can't, I'm not taking it with me. So it sounds like a similar type of situation with you. When you're doing the practice, it's great. But when you can't do that all the time for a sales call or on the sales call, you can't be like, hang on a second, I'm just going to meditate for 10 minutes, you
Right,
know?
right. It's like when it really counts is when it's not there for you.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Like from now that you've experienced, rage art and the nervous system way of doing things, like why do you think, meditation and breath work and some of these more traditional tools didn't help you in the moment?
I feel like they weren't really addressing the root cause of what was going on. Instead, it was just kind of like pushing it down. And then
hmm
when those like anxious feelings and whatnot had the chance to come back up, boy, would they come back up and there was no pushing them back down. And then I
hmm
feel like Rage Heart kind of, at least to me, it felt like it took a different approach with my body in terms of like how it released the anxiety and stuff I was feeling.
hmm
So it
Yeah.
released in a way that either kept it away or in a way that even if it did come back, I could take care of it in just like a moment or two. It's a lot easier to remember to like, okay, feel the ground and do these things than it is to remember to sit down and meditate for 10 minutes when I don't have the time to.
Yeah. I guess it's like, it brings in, I guess, like some people have said, oh, somatics, nervous system, it's the same thing as meditation. And I'm like, it's not, because I've meditated quite a bit. You have. And it's like, then I did this rate chart, the nervous system part, and was like, oh my God, this is, it. I mean, it's similar in the sense you're still using your attention and awareness, but without being aware of how you're actually using attention and awareness, it can have very different effects. So like you said, like if there's a mantra, I don't know much about TM, transcendental meditation, but my understanding is they give you a mantra and you sit there for your 10 or 20 minutes and you chant the mantra, right?
Yep.
And then if you become solely focused on that, it blocks out everything else. And as long as you stay focused on the mantra, you're not feeling the anxiety, the fear, whatever the uncomfortable stuff is there, which is, it's a tool in that sense, but it can very easily become a way to suppress, like you said. So it's like we're using something like that. It can be anything, it can be Netflix or alcohol, but we can say push it down or just suppress our awareness of the uncomfortable thing, or we can use our attention again, our presence, our awareness to, instead of pushing things down, to actually create space for it to come out. Which I think it's
Mm,
a very subtle difference, but I think that's what the nervous system, what I teach in Rage Heart, and I'm far from the only one doing this, teaching this, but that to me is the difference. Some things are suppressing stuff, and then like you said, when it comes out, because it will find a way out sooner or later, it's going to come out with a vengeance because it didn't get out last time. Or we
right.
can be like, let's let a bit of that out right now. Let's feel the ground and look around. Let's create space and room and capacity and for things to flow. And it might not be comfortable, but then they're not going to come back, like you said, with that vengeance as they try to get attention.
Right. I think making space for it's like a good analogy for what Rage Heart does. When it's like, I think about meditation, it's like trying to force yourself not to do a bad habit. Like, besides meditation, just like if you're trying to eat clean and stuff and you like force yourself to not like eat cookies or whatever, you're gonna like eventually relapse and then just binge and undo all your work. And I feel like meditation kind of does that with the feelings where it's like pushes the anxiety down and then all of a sudden it all comes back up at once sometimes. And then I haven't noticed that same thing with the rage heart exercises.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it's like one thing that blew my mind in the beginning was hearing about how, taking a deep breath. Yeah, that's the classic advice. If you're stressed, just take a deep breath, man. And I've been going on Instagram now, building a Rage Heart Instagram, and there's so much deep breathing exercise to calm yourself down. I'm like, bro, like, yes, it's useful, I guess, in an emergency, but that's going to have the same thing. We're going to slow the system down and push that feeling down. So it's going to come, like, that's what I notice with these feelings, energy, stress, trauma, whatever we call it. It comes out. It comes out sideways. It comes out through like a back door. It comes out one way or another, and we either deal with it here and now by making space for it, or it's going to come out through some addiction or some weird thought pattern or anxiety or these different things. So,
Right.
yeah. So, what did you try? Transcendental meditation, breath work. Had you tried things like gratitude lists, like
Oh
journaling?
yeah. Oh yeah. I did daily gratitude for like close to a year. Um,
Mm-hmm. Like
and I
3 times a day,
never,
like the three things?
yeah, every morning it would be three things a day. And I tried that. I tried like a longer weekly gratitude journaling thing as well, and talking about what I was grateful for the week at the same time. And I did that for like a year, and like, yes, I think there were benefits, but it wasn't like that life changing, and it didn't really feel worth the effort, where it just kind of started feeling like another chore where I'm like, all right, sit down, what am I grateful for? First three things I think of and move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it didn't really have did it have any effect at all on the anxiety?
Um, I don't think it had much effect on the anxiety. I think it was still a little uplifting in a way, but not really helping the anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So kind of like a pleasant distraction, maybe like a little break from the anxiety, but not really a fix for it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could still be like grateful and anxious at the same time, where it would more like take me out of the kind of like lethargy, like the lethargic feelings, not so much the anxious feelings.
Like the tiredness, the sort of shut down, heavy marshmallow kind of stuff.
Yeah, when it's like, I don't really want to do this. I'm tired. Nothing really matters. And then after that, like, sure, I'm like, all right, things aren't as bad as I'm making them in my head, but I'm still anxious as heck about this.
Okay. So gratitude sort of like it has a, a bit of an effect. Meditation helps in the moment when you're doing, when you're chanting your mantra. What about breath work? You said you tried breath work.
I personally wasn't the biggest fan of breath work. I felt like it just took a lot of effort, and I'd get distracted and be like, okay, am I doing this right? Am I focusing enough? And it would kind of have the adverse effect.
Hmm. Okay. What about like journaling? Like you would like a journal where morning pages. Some people write down 3 pages a day, or they have their they process things mentally. Did you ever get into that, or as a copywriter
Um,
maybe?
Yeah, I did it for about a year, same time I was doing the gratitude journaling. Like I got into the whole kind of self-improvement, like here's my habit tracker, here's my daily journal, here's my gratitude journal and stuff. And it just kind of became like overwhelming. And I'm like, what's the point of all this if it's just adding to the stress of my day? Because now I'm like, oh, I have these like
Mm,
5 things I need to do before I can even begin my day.
interesting. Right. Like the whole fancy morning routine, entrepreneurs have in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that was adding more stress. It wasn't actually resolving the anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it would help the anxiety a little bit, but at the same time, it would just give me like a false sense of like, man, I've already done so much today. I can take a break now when I hadn't even started on the work.
I know that feeling. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anything else you've tried?
Um,
Crystals? I don't know. Energy work, like
no,
prayer beads. Haven't gone too
I've
much into the
never
spiritual
believed in
world.
that stuff. I studied
Mm,
geology back in college, so they made a big thing
okay.
about like, here's these minerals, none of them do shit.
Right, right, right.
So it was kind of funny because we had a big mix of hippies who
Hmm.
were studying geology. So they were like the small sect that believed in the crystal stuff, and most of us were like, nah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got crystals. I think they look nice.
Yeah.
I've done a retreat here in the valley in Peru, and like this lady who runs a beautiful garden, and she's got these like crystals just in the garden at different places. Some of them are huge too, like an amethyst crystal, and they're gorgeous. Like
Mm,
I can just look at them and be like, that's amazing that nature can make that. I don't know
right.
if it does anything. Like I don't know if I put it out in the moonlight, I can charge it with my intention and blah. I don't know about that. Maybe I don't have any evidence either way, but it seems like they're just nice to look at. That's about as far as I've gone with it. Beyond that, it just seems like I guess another way of putting it is they're just really beautiful rocks. That's
Yeah.
about as far as I can take it. Um, what else? Anything else that comes to mind of things you tried?
Um, I've tried talking to like a therapist and a counselor about stuff.
Okay. How'd that go?
And I mean, like I feel like it was more just like, sweet, get things off my plate in the moment, have someone to talk about like what's actually stressing me out, made me feel a little better. But then like once the
Mhm.
moment came around again, then the anxiety went straight back up, and I'm like, I got no one to talk about, no one to talk to right now about this, so it's not helping.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of it is, all the different techniques, like they can help. They're almost like helping. It's like a life raft.
Yeah.
You're in the water. Maybe I don't know if you're drowning. That might be a bit melodramatic. I don't know. But you're struggling. You're in the water. You want to get out. The water is the anxiety.
Right.
And then you can throw out a life raft of gratitude lists or a life raft of a mantra that you can chant or a therapist. I don't know. What kind of therapist was it? Just talk therapy or?
Yeah. And it's like I
Yes.
did two different varieties of that, where one was more like a not a psychologist, someone who can actually like prescribe medicine as well. And I
Psychiatrist. Yeah.
yeah, I avoided medication
Mm-hmm.
still. I
Mm-hmm.
would be interested in trying like ayahuasca and some of the stuff that you're into there, but I don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
taking these funky drugs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like a psychiatrist and then okay,
Yes.
interesting.
And then like a
Yeah.
typical like just yeah, run of the mill therapist on Zoom calls.
Right. Okay. Okay. And so why so it all sort of helped a little bit, like it helped you, like the therapist, it was like it's nice to talk to someone. Like I know that feeling where you get to just be like, hey, I'm just struggling with this and that. Like it can feel really nice just to have someone listen, right?
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm hearing is that none of it seemed to get to the root problem because you would go away and then the anxiety is still there.
Yeah, it would help with little things, like little surface things, and make it a little easier to get stuff done, but at the same time, like deep down, it's like the anxiety was still there. It was still stopping me from like being fully there, like on sales calls or like in like some new social interactions, or keeping me from like some new experiences and stuff that were a little like a lot of adrenaline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then, so then you came across Rage Heart. So you tried all these different things. You still had the anxiety. There was some things that kind of helped, but weren't really getting to the crux of it. So there you are. You've still got the anxiety going on, still looking for a solution. Sounds like, well, like you said, ready to give up on on meditation and probably some of these other things. And then Rage Heart came along, and so
Mhm.
refresh me. I think you mentioned this already, but like, what exactly about Rage Heart was like, oh, this sounds like it might actually help.
It was when you first launched it, like before you even opened up like kind of the first batch of the academy, when you're like, hey, if you like want, I'll share you with you the very first lesson and the very first thing you can try. And I'm like, yeah, send it over. And it's like I
Mm-hmm.
tried it and I'm like, all right, that actually like cleared my head and got rid of those thoughts and mellowed me down a lot quicker than anything I've ever tried before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, maybe this could be the
Mm.
thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've got that testimonial. I think you said it's on my wall. Is it? I print out like nice things that people say to keep me motivated when I'm having a bad day. But I think it says it was definitely harder than I expected. But once I got used to it, it silenced my mind like never before.
Yep.
I use that all over the place to kind of, say, try and convince people to be like, you got to try this thing out, man. It's so good. So it sounds like, so you tried that and that, that technique is still the foundation of, that's still the main thing I do for myself as well. So you tried that. Were you skeptical? Like when you heard about it, were you a bit like, I don't know, like I'll try it out and see what happens? Or were you
Yeah,
sort
I
of,
was after all the things I've tried, after like, because transcendental meditation, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna pay money for this master to teach me a mantra and stuff. So it's like I had already like sunk some money into trying things that hadn't really worked. I'm like, I don't know
Mhm.
if I want to like give up at this point, but no, it definitely worked better than anything else I've tried.
Mm, interesting. And quickly too, by the sound of it, like you did it and then straight away you felt a shift.
Yeah, like same day, like same time, like I'm like, all right, the thoughts aren't flooding back like they usually do.
Mm, interesting. And then where did it go from there? So that was before you'd even signed up to Raychat. That was just I think I used to say, if you reply and tell me why you signed up or something, I'll send you like a free technique you can try.
Yep,
I think that's what that
that's what
was,
that
right?
was.
And then I think you said, because at that point, Raychat wasn't even open. I think it was just like a waiting list. And then I don't know, a few weeks or a month later, I opened it, you signed up. And what was that like when you got into it? You sort of, because that's really the foundational technique. And then Rage Art just builds on that. It's not like it's just the same technique, just developed and taken deeper. That's how I see it anyway. So what was that like then going through Rage Art, the actual
It
course?
came at a really good time because I was just starting, like my main thing's a copywriter, but for visa reasons here in Japan, I was hopping on an English teaching job on top of my copywriting duties, and I was going through a big move, and that put a lot of strain on my relationship and me personally and stuff. So that's when I found Rage Heart, and that probably helped keep me sane and keep me in that job until I could figure out something else visa wise for longer than I probably would have lasted on my own, and probably saved a lot of stress in my relationship at the time, when it was like it became kind of my routine where it's like I'd be going through like the rage heart lessons, like maybe not most ideally, but I'd be doing it like on the train to work or the train coming home when it's like I don't want to be going to work and I'm tired after a long day, and that's when it would like really have a good effect and set me up either for the rest of the day or at least like quiet my mind so it was a lot easier to sleep after a hard day.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned, I think last time we spoke, you'd be doing the lesson on the train and I'd be like, okay, now for this lesson, you want to lie down on the ground. And you're like, no way, man.
Can't quite do that on a busy train, but it was like, but besides for the laying down stuff, those ones I'd be like, all right, I'll wait until I'm home and I'll just go through some of the exercises that I've already learned and that I can do while either sitting or standing on this train.
hmm hmm What was it like to do because I found these practices, sometimes I can feel like just in a public place, there can be a lot of, emotion and energy around the space. And it's been so, I found really, I can sit on my couch at home when I'm all alone and drop in and feel the ground and all that stuff. I can feel very relaxed, but it's a whole other experience to do that in a public place. I remember one day I had just an amazing experience sitting in the park here at our local town about 20 minutes away called Urubamba. And I remember using these techniques too, and then watching everyone just noticing what I was noticing. And the closer someone was, the more likely I'd notice it was a loud sound, like a truck rumbling down the street. I'd just automatically start paying attention to it. And it was so interesting to notice just how the more something stuck out from the rest of the environment, the more likely I was to notice it, and how the system was just automatically protecting itself, which then I think made me feel more relaxed because I'm like, oh, I don't need to be like consciously trying to like be on guard all the time. My system's doing it without me even thinking about it. So how was it doing some of this stuff on the train? Like, I don't know if the anxiety gets triggered in a situation like that, but you're around a bunch of people that you don't really know, I'm guessing. What was that
Right.
like?
Um, Generally, I think for one, I'm someone who enjoys people watching in general. So it was interesting to see like, okay, what am I noticing during Rage Heart versus like, what do I usually like notice when I'm just like sitting in a cafe watching people walk by and stuff. And it was like, I felt like one, I hate the on-train ads because my mind would go towards like the screen and I'm like, all right, keep my vision away from that. I'll focus on this area where I can only see like people or out the window and stuff. And it was calming in a way where I felt like no one was really noticing me and it wasn't something that like stood out more than just me being a foreigner in Japan already does. So I felt like I could be pretty comfortable. I felt like no one really cared what I was doing and I could notice things more deeply than I usually did and get out of my own head. Because a lot of times
Mhm.
like I'm on the train and I'm like just going through my head like I don't want to be here, how many stops left, like I don't if I feel anxious about going to work and stuff, but this made it easy to be like, huh, I can actually see what's going on around me and I'm present in the moment for it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it still blows my mind where I'm like, this is so simple. Like it's so simple and yet so powerful at the same time. Like I can, yeah, like sit on the train, I can sit in the garden if I'm feeling it. I can get stressed sometimes or get in my head, but it's easier than it's ever been to just be like, oh, well, I can get out of it anytime I like now. Like it's just like, oh, okay, just take a few minutes. I look around. Okay, well, it's kind of good again. It's not perfect, but it's much
Yeah.
better than it was. And it's so quick. That's what I interviewed another lady who's been going through Rage Shark called Gayla. And she said the same thing. She's like, it's just so fast. She can be walking through the supermarket, and all stressed about the day and worried about whatever, just like everyone else in the supermarket. And then she's like, oh, I remember, I'm going to go feel my big toe. And then she's like, just instantly, it's just the mental chatter is just gone. And I'm just here. That seems to be the thing that people say the most is that I'm just present. I'm just here.
Yep.
And then the anxiety can still be there, but it's not like, it's almost like it seems like we're not afraid of, I know for me, like it's like there's less fear of the fear itself or less fear of the different feelings. It's like, well, I'm here. Might not be awesome, but it's okay. Like I'm okay,
Yeah.
you know?
The most extreme situation that I've kind of applied Rage Heart was
Mm.
in December actually. So about half a year ago, I went skydiving
Mm-hmm.
and the plane ride up was pretty damn nerve wracking. And then it's like when we're getting ready to jump from 10,000 feet, they like open the door and that's when I'm like, huh. But then I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go through this and focus. And I'm like, started calming down. I was able to be present rather than just my mind racing of like, when are we jumping? When are we jumping?
Mm.
And
Is that was
surprisingly,
yeah.
Mhm. Surprisingly, like, because I've tried like, okay, just take a deep breath in those kinds of situations before, and it never does shit. But like Rage Heart, like I'm actually able to take myself kind of out of the anxiety that was really making my whole body tight and relax a
Mm.
little bit.
Interesting. Yeah. Skydiving, is that a thing that you do regularly, or is that a new thing? Or
And that was the one and only time I've ever done it.
hmm do you think you would have done it without, if you hadn't done Rage Heart? Do you think you would have still done it?
I think there's a chance that I probably would have gotten like cold feet at the last second, or otherwise it just wouldn't have been the same experience because I wouldn't have really been there for it. I would have been more in my head about the anxiety of jumping out of an
Mm.
airplane rather than like being able to calm myself and be like, okay, just enjoy this
Mm.
beautiful view and enjoy the wind in my
Mm.
face.
What was it like falling? I mean, I guess you were doing the same thing in the air as well because you were already sort of present, like you were feeling the wind, looking around at the environment, I don't know, 10,000 feet below you. Like, what was that like? Because I haven't been skydiving since I've gotten into this stuff.
It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Like I did it in Hawaii as well, which is just already
Oof.
a beautiful place. So
So you're like way above the islands and then you're coming down. That would have been so
yeah,
epic.
watching the ocean, seeing the
Ah.
mountains. It was a perfectly clear day, and I'm like, this is a time to be alive and a time to be present.
Oh, dude, I'm getting goosebumps. That sounds amazing. Oh, dude. Fantastic. Okay. So if I look at my notes, you did say at one point, Rage Art or this approach is 10 times better than meditation. Do you still feel like that?
Yeah, I'd still stick by my words where I feel like probably the effects that I have in my day to day are like 10 times greater than I ever got doing like meditate in the morning or even the twice a day or take a deep breath when I'm never remembered to do that. But I think especially because Rage Heart's kind of been ingrained enough with the daily lessons where it's like when I start feeling anxious, sometimes I think it's like, all right, just feel the ground. And then I'm able to go through one of the exercises and bring myself out of it. Like it's become like a
Mm,
default response now to just tell myself, okay, feel the ground and I'll work through this.
Okay. So it's not something that you have to, it's not like a guided thing that I mean, you can put the audio on, but you don't have to. It sounds like you've got the skills now, which is my goal really is to do that, to give you, so you don't need Rage Heart. And you can go out, it's just integrated into your being. Your system just starts regulating itself, becomes more and more automatic. It's just it just happens without thought. Um,
Yeah.
it sounds like that's sort of what's going on. There's still like maybe a thought of like, hey, look around, I can feel the ground, but it's not something that you need an instruction for. Like you've got it enough already where you can just do it on your own.
Right. Like my mind will start racing a little bit or the anxious thoughts come in and then it's like there's like another voice in my head that's like just feel the ground. Like
Uh-huh.
it's become almost automatic in a way, which is great because meditation never did that for me. Like even just like the all right, take a
Mm.
deep breath before you like go up and like approach a girl or something. It's like, yeah, but no one ever remembers to take that deep breath and stuff. Like I've never had anything automatic like this before that's actually like been beneficial.
Mm. Almost like it's almost like you're upgrading like the operating system. It's not a technique. Guess it starts out as a technique, but then it becomes like a new default program that the system starts running because it's like, well, this is better than the alternative, which is the anxiety. That's not working. So let's try this new pathway.
Right. Right. And of course,
Mm.
like there's still some anxiety there. Like it didn't clear all my anxiety when skydiving, but it made it easier to be present and like lower things or just in everyday situations as well when it's like my mind races a lot and I'm like 20 things going through it and then I'm like, all right, I can get it to shut up. I know how to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's a sort of a caveat that I try to point out to people with this work is that it's not about getting rid of all the all the not really bad, but the uncomfortable feelings. It's about, it's like not getting stuck in any one spot, being able to flow between all of it. Anxiety has a purpose. It's
Mhm.
just learning almost like to not be overwhelmed by it or controlled by it or dominated by it, to be able to be like, it can be there, but I'm the boss. This anxiety is like, it's there. It's like a little kid maybe, but I'm running the show. It's a little bit
No, I
like
think
that.
that's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's definitely telling me something that I should know, but sometimes it gets a little too loud and I'm like, all right, you've made your point, but it won't shut up. And that's when radar comes in.
Yeah, interesting. And one thing that just popped into my head was how has it changed your, if you feel, if you're up for sharing, your, did you say you're in a relationship right now?
Going through a little bit of a break in things.
Hmm.
I remember your story about you basically realizing, okay, I'm gonna leave Australia and my relationship and all that and stuff. And I'm like, it's definitely kind of helped me realize some things about myself. And I've been going through a lot of, I guess, more inner work in the last couple of years than I have before that in my entire life. But it did help the relationship that I was in a lot
Hmm.
because I mean, like I mentioned, the stress of a new job and moving and stuff put a lot of strain on the relationship. And I think that Rage Heart helped keep things kind of calm.
Mm, yeah. And what was it like to, because I think connecting with someone, especially physically, it doesn't have to be a sexual thing, but even like a hug, it's a different, there's the, I'm in my head and I'm not even really there. I'm like off thinking about something and I'm giving someone a hug. And then there's like giving someone a hug and I'm 100% present for that hug. Okay, so whatever it happens to be, did you notice any differences in that kind of, it doesn't even have to be like a romantic partner. It could be a friend. It could be a whatever in that sort of, any differences there?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed that like, you know how like you get used to someone over time and it's like it's not always like the same feelings. Like if you like embrace them or something, they kind of like fade over time. And I feel like Rage Heart kind of helped at least clear the thoughts that would overtake it. So it would be a little easier to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm present with this person. This is better than
Hmm.
whatever my mind would be going. And I'm not like checking my watch or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it allowed almost like it made it easier to sort of notice or feel the value of the relationship, the connection, the good feelings. It created more space for that to come through
Yeah,
because
like
there
even
you were
over
just more
time, it
present.
made it feel, yeah, like more like it does when it's unique, when it's like
Mm-hmm.
varied at the beginning of a relationship, when it's like, hey, this is new, this is exciting. And then over time, those things fade. And I feel like Rage Heart helps bring you back into the moment that used to be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Okay, well, we've covered a lot here on Rage Heart. I'd love to. Well, who would you say? I mean, a couple of questions. You might have already answered it, but if there's anything you'd like to add to this, um, who do you think Rage Heart is for? Who would you say? Who would you say is a really good fit for Rage Heart?
I mean, I'd say that anyone who's trying to calm themselves down, who's dealing with anxiety like I have my whole life, would be a great fit. And someone who wants to kind of be more present or take more control of their day-to-day life would be a great fit as well. I think it's most people could probably benefit from it in one way or another.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as you have a nervous system and you're a human being, I suppose you got to be able to understand the words. So,
Yeah, I don't
and
know
then the
if a
last
dog would
question.
learn too well.
They can learn from me, maybe, or learn, like co-regulate, do that. Um, Maybe they're teaching me. The last question was, how would you explain? I mean, you've already done a lot of explaining for Rage Up, but is there anything else, any other sentences or words you would use to explain Rage Heart to someone if someone said, "Well, what the hell is it? Why should I sign up?" In your own words, what's it
I
all
mean, it's
about?
unique, but it's so different from anything else I've tried. Like, obviously, some of the benefits are kind of parallel to meditation, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that. Like, I think it's something that kind of gets to the root cause of the anxiety and those kinds of feelings and helps bring you more present in the moment. I don't know. I think that would be the best way to differentiate it from meditation. It's more of a long-term, more dealing with the root cause of things the meditation does.
Right. Okay. So when you say long term, like meditation's almost like a band-aid or a quick fix, or I can sit down and chant my mantra and then get up 20 minutes later. I'm like, okay, I feel a bit better. Or you can be like, hey, let's do the hard work of actually getting to the shit that's behind the anxiety, the stuff that's driving it, and solve that. And if we solve that, it might be a bit harder. It might take a little bit longer. It's not necessarily a quick fix, but in some ways it can be. It sounds like that's the
Yeah.
difference between them.
And I mean, like, sure you could use Rage Heart as a lot of little band-aids as well, where it's like it just takes not even like a minute or something to kind of like get out of your head, and it can be done any time, a day, any place. It's not like you need to find someplace quiet to sit to do it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
So
any tool, sounds like you're saying any tool can be abused.
yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Fantastic. On that note, let's wrap things up. I know you have to go, but if people want to learn more about you or reach out to ask you questions or about your experience, is there anywhere like you on social media? Do you have a website? What's the best way or ways for people to get in touch?
Yeah, the primary platform I connect with people is Instagram. I'm
Hmm.
Logan.hobby, Hobby on Instagram. And
Hmm.
then my website, I'm a copywriter, is lhcopy.com. So those are the two best places to find me and connect.
Cool. Okay. I'll have links to those in the show notes at rageheart.co on the episode page.
Sweet.
Thanks for
Appreciate you,
coming on
John.
the Yeah, appreciate you too, man. This has been really fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course.